The Mafia Boss fired the Chubby Housekeeper, then realized she had saved his life. Core hook. After quietly moving an expensive sculpture in her employer's Boston mansion, a Chubby Housekeeper is fired by the cold, feared Mafia Boss who owns the estate. Hours later, his security team discovers a sophisticated listening device hidden exactly where the sculpture had stood and realizes her strange act may have prevented a deadly betrayal. Female-led. Emily Carter, 30, a fuller-figured, ordinary-looking housekeeper with warm brown eyes, dark wavy hair usually tied back, and a habit of noticing sounds other people ignore. Before financial problems forced her into domestic work, she spent 6 years repairing televisions, amplifiers, radios, security systems, and industrial electronics beside her late father. Mafia Boss. Adrian Moretti, 39, the controlled and intimidating head of the Moretti organization. He operates through Boston real estate, shipping, construction, logistics, and private security. Wealthy, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress, Adrian trusts systems more easily than people. The sound was so faint that nobody else in the Moretti mansion noticed it. Emily Carter did. She stopped polishing the walnut console table beneath the second-floor windows and tilted her head. There, a thin, electrical whine. Almost nothing. A mosquito trapped somewhere behind the walls. Emily glanced down the corridor. At the far end stood a bronze sculpture of a rearing horse on a black marble pedestal. Adrian Moretti had purchased it at an auction in Milan for an amount Emily had once overheard and immediately wished she hadn't. Housekeepers were not supposed to move it. Nobody was. Mrs. Donnelly, the estate manager, had made that very clear during Emily's first week. Yet the sound seemed to be coming from behind it. Emily approached slowly. She leaned closer. The hum disappeared. She stepped back. It returned. Her expression changed. She knew that sound, or something close enough to it. Years earlier, when she still worked beside her father in Carter Electronics in Quincy, cheap switching power supplies sometimes produced a similar high-frequency whine. So did damaged transformers. Wireless transmitters could do it too, particularly when badly shielded or placed too close to another electrical source. Emily crouched beside the pedestal. The sound grew slightly stronger. "What are you doing?" The voice behind her was calm. That made it worse. Emily stood immediately. Adrian Moretti was 20 feet away. 3 men in dark suits stood behind him. Nobody in the mansion needed to announce when Adrian entered a room. The atmosphere did it for him. He was tall, broad-shouldered, impeccably dressed in charcoal. His black hair brushed neatly back. At 39, Adrian possessed the kind of stillness Emily associated with expensive machinery. Nothing moved unless there was a reason. His gaze shifted from Emily to the sculpture, then to the polishing cloth in her hand. "I heard something." One of the men behind Adrian looked amused. Adrian didn't. "What?" "Aum. Silence." Emily wished immediately that she had chosen almost any other explanation. Adrian glanced at the wall. "I don't hear anything." "I know." His eyes returned to her. Emily realized how that sounded. "I mean, it's very high-pitched." "Then leave it." He started walking again. Emily looked toward the sculpture. The hum returned, sharper this time. She made a decision that would cost her job less than 4 minutes later. She put both hands against the marble pedestal and pushed. The pedestal moved barely 6 inches, but it was enough. Behind it, almost invisible against the patterned wallpaper, was a tiny circular discoloration. Emily leaned toward it. The hum stopped. "Emily." She froze. Adrian had turned around. His eyes settled on the displaced sculpture. Something changed in his face. Not anger. Something colder. "Who told you to move that?" "No one." "Then why did you?" "I told you." "I heard. I have a meeting in 12 minutes. "I understand." "Apparently you don't." Mrs. Donnelly appeared from the staircase, took one look at the sculpture, and went pale. "Mr. Moretti, I'm so sorry. I'll have someone—" "No." Adrian's gaze remained on Emily. "You've worked here how long?" 4 months. "And the rules regarding this floor were explained?" "Yes." "Then, you knowingly ignored them." Emily tightened her fingers around the cloth. "Yes." The men behind him remained silent. Emily suddenly understood that this wasn't about furniture. Adrian Moretti's life was constructed around obedience. His employees followed instructions. His drivers arrived early. His security guards opened doors before he reached them. People who came to the mansion lowered their voices when he entered. Emily had just moved something she had explicitly been told never to touch. Adrian looked at Mrs. Donnelly. Pay her through the end of the month. Mrs. Donnelly blinked. Mr. Moretti, today is her last day. Emily stared at him. You're firing me? Yes. For moving a statue 6 inches. For deciding your judgment mattered more than an instruction in my home. Emily felt heat climb into her face. She looked at the men behind him, then at Adrian. She could have apologized. She needed the job. Her mother's property taxes were due in 3 weeks. Emily's ancient Honda needed a transmission repair she had been postponing for months. She had $78 in her checking account until Friday. Instead, something stubborn inside her rose. If your rules matter more than why somebody breaks them, she said quietly, you probably shouldn't hire people capable of thinking. The corridor became completely silent. Mrs. Donnelly closed her eyes. One of Adrian's men looked at the floor. Adrian stared at Emily. For one strange second, she thought she saw surprise. Then it vanished. Goodbye, Miss Carter. Emily placed the polishing cloth on the console table. Goodbye, Mr. Moretti. She walked past him. Neither looked back. 3 hours later, Adrian Moretti realized the housekeeper he had fired might have saved his life. The meeting began at 11. 6 men sat around the long table in Adrian's private library discussing the acquisition of 3 industrial properties along the Boston waterfront. On paper, the meeting concerned redevelopment. In reality, those properties controlled access to warehouses, trucking routes, and a private shipping terminal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Adrian had enemies who would kill for considerably less. At 11:43, the meeting ended. At 12:06, Adrian's head of security, Vincent Hale, entered the library carrying a small black object inside a clear evidence bag. Adrian looked up from his desk. What is it? Vincent placed the bag down. A transmitter. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Where? Vincent hesitated. 2nd floor corridor. Adrian stopped moving. Behind the sculpture. Silence. Adrian looked toward the doorway. Emily Carter had left the mansion 2 hours earlier. Vincent continued. One of the cleaning staff moved the pedestal back. A guard noticed damage to the wallpaper. We opened the wall. Adrian picked up the evidence bag. The device inside was smaller than a quarter. Professional. Range. Not sure yet. Manufacturer. No markings. How long? We don't know. Adrian's voice lowered. How did she find it? Vincent frowned. The housekeeper? Yes. She probably saw something. She said she heard it. Vincent stared at him. Adrian looked again at the transmitter. Search the entire house. We already sweep every 48 hours. Then your sweeps miss this. Vincent's jaw tightened. We'll do another. Analog. Excuse me? No networked equipment. No automated scanners connected to our system. Pull the walls apart if necessary. Vincent nodded. Adrian leaned back. Something uncomfortable had begun forming beneath his ribs. Not fear. Adrian knew fear. This was uncertainty. He hated uncertainty. Find Emily Carter. Vincent paused. You fired her. I remember. Bring her back? Adrian looked at the device. No. Then, after a beat, ask her. Emily was carrying groceries up the stairs to her mother's apartment in Dorchester when a black Range Rover pulled to the curb. She stopped. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. The driver's door opened. A man she recognized from the mansion stepped out. Daniel Russo, Adrian's second-in-command. Unlike most of Adrian's men, Daniel occasionally smiled. He wasn't smiling now. Emily, if you've come for the uniform, Mrs. Donnelly said I could mail it. We need you at the house. No. Daniel blinked. Apparently that answer was uncommon in his profession. Mr. Moretti wants to speak with you. He had his chance. He found something. Emily shifted the grocery bag against her hip. What? Daniel studied her. A listening device. She stopped, behind the sculpture. Yes. Emily looked toward the Range Rover. Then back at Daniel. How sophisticated. You'll have to ask Adrian. Then tell Adrian to ask his security team. They already looked. And? Daniel's silence answered her. Emily Sahil. My ice cream is melting. 20 minutes later, her groceries were inside her mother's freezer, and Emily was sitting in the back of a Range Rover wondering what terrible sequence of decisions had brought her back toward Beacon Hill. Adrian was waiting in the library. He didn't apologize. Emily noticed that immediately. The transmitter sat on his desk. Vincent Hales stood near the fireplace with 2 security technicians. Adrian gestured toward the device. You recognize it? Emily didn't move. You fired me. Yes. And now you want free technical support? Daniel coughed to hide something that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Adrian's eyes remained on her. I'll pay you. That wasn't the point. What is? Emily folded her arms. You assumed I was stupid. I assumed you ignored an instruction, because you didn't ask why. I did. You asked while already deciding I was wrong. Something flickered in his expression. Emily walked toward the desk. May I? Adrian nodded. She picked up the evidence bag and examined the device. Did anyone power it after removal? No, Vincent said. Good. She turned it beneath the light. No serial number. Custom casing. Probably assembled locally. Vincent stepped closer. You can tell that from looking at it? I can tell somebody filed the injection points after molding. Factory cases don't look like that. She pointed. See the edge? Vincent leaned closer. His expression changed. Emily continued. The wine probably came from a miniature voltage regulator. Either it's failing or whoever built it prioritized size over quality. Adrian watched her. How did you hear something my security equipment didn't detect? Because your equipment was looking for radio signals. She looked at Vincent. Right? He nodded reluctantly. Our sweepers scan common transmission frequencies. Emily pointed at the device. This might not transmit continuously. If it records locally and only sends data during short scheduled bursts, you could sweep the room 20 times and miss it. Nobody spoke. Emily glanced around the library. When was this floor last renovated? 8 months ago, Adrian said. Electrical? Some. Smart home upgrades? Yes. Who installed them? Vincent answered. A contractor we've used for years. Emily looked at him. I want to see the control hardware. Vincent glanced at Adrian. Adrian noticed. So did Emily. You don't need his permission to show me a fuse box, she said. Vincent's mouth tightened. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Show her. The mansion's automation room occupied a discrete space beneath the east staircase. Emily entered and stopped. Server racks. Lighting controllers. Security interfaces. Network switches. Everything beautifully organized. Everything expensive. And, to Emily, everything suspicious. She listened. Vincent stood behind her. What exactly are you doing? Nothing. You're standing there. Correct. Why? Because you keep talking. Daniel turned away to hide another smile. Vincent glared at him. Emily walked toward the lighting controller. She crouched, then moved toward the backup power unit. She closed her eyes. Adrian stood in the doorway watching her. For almost 30 seconds, Emily did absolutely nothing. Then she opened her eyes. That one. Vincent looked where she pointed. A power conditioner? Open it. We installed it ourselves. Open it. Vincent looked at Adrian. Adrian nodded. The casing came off. Nothing appeared unusual. Vincent exhaled. There's nothing. Emily reached forward. May I? He handed her a screwdriver. She removed a secondary plate. Behind it sat a circuit board. Emily stared at it, then pointed toward one corner. That capacitor doesn't belong. Vincent frowned. It's a capacitor. No. She carefully touched the component. It's pretending to be one. The room became still. A technician removed it. Beneath the plastic shell was a miniature microphone and memory module. Daniel whispered a curse. Adrian didn't move. Emily looked at Vincent. 1. Nobody needed to ask what she meant. 20 minutes later, she found the second. It was inside a smoke detector outside Adrian's private office. The third was more disturbing. Emily asked to see the conference room where Adrian met attorneys and business partners. Vincent told her it had been swept twice that morning. Emily walked around the room slowly. Nothing. Then she noticed a faint clicking near the window. She looked upward. Motorized shades? Yes. Who installed them? Same contractor. Emily climbed onto a chair. Adrian immediately stepped forward. I'll get someone. I can climb a chair. You could fall. Emily stared down at him. I survived 30 years before meeting you. Daniel suddenly became fascinated by the ceiling. Emily removed the small cover from the motor housing. Her expression changed. Vincent. He approached. She handed him the screwdriver. Take that panel off. Inside was another transmitter. Vincent's face went pale. Emily climbed down. 3. Adrian stared at the device. His professional security team had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars protecting the mansion. Emily Carter had dismantled their confidence with a screwdriver, and 43 minutes. She brushed dust from her hands. Anything else? Adrian looked at her differently now. Not as an employee. Not even as someone useful. As a problem he had completely misjudged. Where did you learn this? My father owned an electronics repair shop. You worked there? 6 years. As a receptionist? Emily stared at him. Adrian realized his mistake before she answered. No. Her voice was dry. I repaired electronics. Daniel looked down. Adrian ignored him. Security systems? Sometimes. Transmitters? Anything customers broke badly enough to bring through the door. What happened? To the shop? Yes. My father died. Medical bills ate what was left. Online retailers ate the rest. For the first time, her voice changed. Only slightly. Adrian noticed. So you became a housekeeper. I became employed. There was no shame in her answer. That bothered him more than shame would have. She wasn't asking to be rescued from her life. She wasn't impressed by his. She simply needed work and did it. Adrian looked at the 3 devices lined across the table. I want you to examine the rest of the house. Emily laughed once. No. Everyone looked at her. Adrian's expression hardened. I'll compensate you. You keep saying that as if money makes every answer yes. It usually does. That sounds lonely. The words landed harder than Emily intended. Daniel stopped smiling. Vincent stared at the floor. Adrian's face became unreadable. Emily picked up her coat. I'll give you 1 day. Adrian said nothing. 1 day, she repeated. Consulting rate. 8 hours. After that, you hire someone qualified. You are qualified. 3 hours ago I wasn't qualified to move a sculpture. His jaw tightened. Emily put on her coat. Tomorrow at 8. She walked toward the door. Emily. She stopped. Adrian rarely used her first name. Why did you move it? She looked back. Because something sounded wrong. Then she left. Adrian remained beside the table, long after the door closed. The next morning, Emily returned wearing jeans, sneakers, a gray sweater, and carrying a battered red toolbox. Vincent looked offended by the toolbox. Adrian looked curious. That? Emily glanced down. My father bought it in 1998. I can get you better equipment. I know. She walked past him. Adrian followed. By noon, Emily had found no additional microphones. Instead, she found something worse. A small irregularity in the mansion's automation network. Someone had created a maintenance account 18 months earlier. The account appeared legitimate. It wasn't. They can see when rooms are occupied, Emily explained. Adrian stood beside her in the security room. Through cameras. No. Lighting. Motion sensors. Thermostats. Door sensors. So they know where I am. Not exactly. She pulled up a diagnostic log. They know where everyone is. Adrian's expression changed. Emily continued. If your bedroom thermostat changes at midnight, they know you're there. If the kitchen motion sensor activates at 2 in the morning, they know someone is downstairs. If the west gate opens, they know a vehicle entered. Vincent crossed his arms. We'll shut down the network. Don't. He looked at her. Why? Because whoever did this will know you found them. Adrian studied her. What would you do? Emily turned toward him. Lee. Silence. Daniel smiled. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You disapprove of nearly everything I do, yet your solution is deception. I contain multitude. This time Adrian actually smiled. Barely. It transformed his face for less than a second. Emily noticed. She wished she hadn't. We feed the system normal behavior, she continued. Leave everything running. Make them believe nobody knows. And while they believe that, we figure out what they're listening for. Adrian's gaze remained on her. You said 1 day. I did. And? Emily looked at the screen. I hate unfinished repairs. That evening, Adrian ordered dinner brought into the security room. Emily had been working for 10 hours. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by opened control panels, when a plate appeared beside her. She looked up. Adrian stood there. What is that? Food. I recognize food. Then we're making progress. Emily looked at the plate. Chicken. Roasted vegetables. Potatoes. You remembered I don't eat mushrooms. Adrian paused. She had mentioned it once. At lunch. 4 months earlier. I remember things. Emily looked at him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel entered carrying printed maintenance records, and whatever had almost happened disappeared. The records revealed that 4 contractors had accessed the mansion during the relevant period. 3 had clean histories. The 4th company, North Star Integrated Systems, had recently changed ownership. The buyer was a holding company. The holding company led to another. Then another. Adrian's attorneys traced the final beneficiary. Sebastian Rourke, Adrian's oldest business partner. The man scheduled to meet Adrian in 48 hours to finalize the waterfront redevelopment agreement. Vincent immediately wanted him detained. Emily disagreed. You don't know he planted anything. He owns the company through 4 shell corporations. That's suspicious. It isn't proof. Vincent scoffed. You don't understand these people. Emily turned. And you don't understand electronics, yet here we are. Daniel coughed. Adrian looked at Emily. What are you suggesting? Listen before you react. Vincent shook his head. We've already been listening. No. Emily pointed toward the devices. They've been listening. She picked up the transmitter from the conference room shade. But there's something strange. What? The storage capacity. Adrian waited. These devices can record more than they're transmitting. A lot more. Meaning? Emily frowned. Meaning we're assuming information is leaving the house. She looked at the transmitter again. What if information is also coming in? That question changed everything. They worked until after midnight. Emily eventually proved it. The devices were two-way, not conventional speakers. Instead, they could inject tiny audio signals into the mansion's integrated sound system during specific moments. Someone wasn't merely stealing conversations. Someone was manufacturing them. Adrian stared at the technical logs. How? Imagine you're walking past your office and hear Daniel speaking inside. Daniel frowned. But I'm not there. Exactly. A 12-second recording plays through a hidden speaker. Just loud enough for Adrian to hear part of a conversation. Adrian's face slowly hardened. Emily continued. Or you receive a call while sitting in the library. A device introduces interference containing a voice fragment. You assume it came through the phone. Memories began moving behind Adrian's eyes. 6 months of them. A voice outside his study. A fragment of Sebastian Rourke apparently telling someone Adrian had become too comfortable. A conversation supposedly involving a union representative. A threat. A betrayal. Each incident had seemed incidental. Together they had changed Adrian's decisions. He had withdrawn contracts, moved money, reassigned security, cut Sebastian out of 2 deals. Emily watched realization settle across his face. They weren't spying on you, she said. They were programming me. It was the first time Emily had ever heard fear in Adrian Moretti's silence. The next morning, Sebastian Rourke disappeared. Not because Adrian ordered it, because somebody else had reached him first. His abandoned car was found near Logan Airport. Bloodless. Empty. His phone remained inside. Adrian's organization went into lockdown, and Emily became a liability. You're staying here. Adrian said it, as if informing her of the weather. Emily stared at him across his office. No. Someone knows we discovered the network. Possibly. They may know you discovered it. Possibly. Then you're staying. That isn't your decision. Adrian's voice lowered. Emily. No. Your apartment isn't secure. My apartment also isn't yours. I can put guards outside. You can ask. I don't need permission to protect you. Emily became completely still. There it was. The line. The difference between the man she was beginning to respect and the man everyone else feared. Yes, she said. You do. Adrian's expression changed. If someone comes after you, then tell me the risk. Give me options. Let me choose. This isn't theoretical. Neither is my life. He walked around the desk. You don't understand what happens when people around me become useful. Emily looked up at him. Useful? His jaw tightened. That came out wrong. No. I think it came out exactly the way you think. He stopped. Emily picked up her toolbox. I helped because somebody compromised your house. I didn't become property because I found the problem. Nobody said you were. You just decided where I'm sleeping. For your safety. Control with good intentions is still control. Adrian stared at her. The words found a place inside him no threat ever had. Emily walked out. He let her. That was the first choice he made differently because of her. The second came 15 minutes later. He sent Daniel after her. Not to stop her. To give her a phone number. If you want security, Daniel told her, standing beside her Honda, call. Emily looked toward the mansion. He agreed to that? Daniel smiled. Eventually, Emily almost smiled too. That night, someone entered her apartment building. Emily never saw him, but she heard him. A faint, electronic chirp sounded from the hallway outside her door at 1:17 a.m. She sat up. Another chirp. Then silence. Emily slipped from bed and approached without turning on the lights. Through the peephole, she saw a man crouched beside the electronic access panel. He wasn't picking her lock. He was cloning the building's entry system. Emily backed away. She called Daniel. Not Adrian. Daniel answered immediately. Emily? Someone's outside. 47 seconds later, a black SUV appeared at the end of her street. The man vanished before Daniel's team reached the building. Adrian arrived 7 minutes later. He stepped from another car wearing black trousers, a white dress shirt, and no coat despite the February cold. Emily came downstairs. The moment he saw her, something in his face shifted. Not anger. Relief. He stopped several feet away. Are you hurt? No. Did he enter? No. Did you see him? Barely. Adrian nodded. Then he said something Emily hadn't expected. Do you want to stay somewhere else tonight? Not an order. A question. Emily looked at him. Yes. Where? She almost laughed. You really are trying. His eyes held hers. Yes. The admission was quiet. It affected her more than it should have. Emily chose a Moretti-owned apartment near the public garden. Adrian did not stay. He placed security in the lobby, only after asking. At 2 a.m, Emily stood at the window watching snow begin to fall across Boston. Across the street, Adrian sat inside his car. He had promised not to put guards inside the apartment. He had said nothing about himself. Emily stared at the black sedan, then called him. His phone lit inside the car. He answered, You're ridiculous. A pause. Probably. You can come upstairs. Another pause. Are you sure? Yes. Adrian entered 5 minutes later carrying 2 coffees. They sat at the kitchen counter. No guards. No employees. No mansion. For the first time, Adrian Moretti looked less like the man who controlled half the rooms he entered, and more like someone who had forgotten how to exist when there was nothing to control. Emily wrapped both hands around her cup. Who do you trust? Daniel. Anyone else? Adrian thought. Vincent. Emily noticed the hesitation. You hesitated. No. You did. I was thinking. You were deciding whether you wanted the answer to be true. Adrian looked at her. You do that often. What? Tell me things I don't want to hear. That's probably why you fired me. His mouth almost curved. Emily looked out at the snow. What happened to Sebastian? I don't know. You think he's dead? Possibly. Because somebody wanted you to think he betrayed you? Yes. Emily slowly turned. Then whoever did this wasn't trying to steal your waterfront deal. Adrian's eyes sharpened. They were trying to make you destroy your own alliances. Silence. And if Sebastian is dead, she continued, you'll assume his people did something. His people will assume you did. A war, without whoever started it ever firing the first shot. Adrian leaned back. Emily watched him think. That was when she understood why people feared him. Not because he was violent, because he was fast. Within seconds, he was already reconstructing months of decisions. Contracts, arguments, rumors, people he had pushed away. One name appeared repeatedly. Vincent Hale, his security chief. The man who controlled which information reached Adrian. The man whose equipment Emily had found compromised. The man who had personally approved Northstar's installation. Adrian stood. Emily caught his wrist. Don't. He looked at her hand, then her face. You're about to confront him. Yes. That's what whoever built this system expects. Adrian remained still. Emily released him. If Vincent is involved, he expects suspicion eventually. If he isn't involved, accusing him destroys another loyal relationship. What do you suggest? Emily looked toward the coffee maker. Then she smiled. We make another mistake. The next afternoon, Adrian called Vincent into the library. Emily was supposedly gone. In reality, she was inside a service room monitoring the mansion's old copper wiring through equipment she had assembled from components bought at an electronics supplier in Cambridge. Adrian told Vincent that Emily had discovered a hidden archive inside the original transmitter. It was a lie. He claimed the archive identified whoever installed the devices. Another lie. He said Emily had taken a copy home. The biggest lie. Then they waited. Nothing happened for 3 hours. At 7:42 p.m., Emily's monitoring equipment detected a signal, not leaving the mansion, traveling through its electrical wiring. She followed it. Basement, east wing, security room, then upward, Vincent's private office. Adrian stood beside her as the signal map formed. It's him. Emily shook her head. No. What? The signal isn't originating there. She traced the wiring. It passes through his office. Where does it originate? Emily followed the cable diagram. Her finger stopped. Daniel Russo's office. Adrian went completely still. No. Emily looked at him. Adrian. No. Daniel had worked for him for 14 years. Daniel had been beside him when his father died. Daniel knew every property, every account, every vulnerability. He was the closest thing Adrian had to a brother. Emily watched the cold certainty drain from Adrian's face. For once, he didn't look powerful. He looked betrayed. Then another signal appeared. Emily frowned. Wait. It originated from Daniel's office. But Daniel wasn't there. He was standing upstairs with Vincent. Emily checked again. Someone's routing it. Through Daniel? Yes. Can you trace the origin? Give me a minute. She moved quickly. Adrian watched her connect an old analog oscilloscope to the building's low-voltage system. What is that? Something your expensive cybersecurity people stopped using because it doesn't connect to Wi-Fi. The waveform stabilized. Emily followed the interference. Not Daniel's office. Not Vincent's. A room nobody had considered. The mansion's mechanical control room. They entered together. Behind an electrical panel, Emily found a relay. New. Professionally installed. She removed it. On the back was a maintenance sticker. Merrick Facilities Group. Adrian recognized the name immediately. Thomas Merrick, his chief financial officer. A man who had worked for the Moretti organization for 11 years. A man nobody considered part of security, which meant nobody had searched his access. The motive emerged slowly. Merrick had been siphoning money from waterfront development accounts for years. Not million. Tens of million. Sebastian Rourke had discovered discrepancies. Merrick knew Sebastian would eventually tell Adrian. So he built a different story. He used fabricated conversations to convince Adrian that Sebastian was preparing to betray him. He manipulated Sebastian into believing Adrian planned to remove him. He compromised both organizations. If they turned against each other, their financial records would be destroyed, moved, or buried in the chaos, and Merrick would disappear. But Emily had moved a sculpture 6 inches. The entire plan began collapsing. Merrick realized it before they did. At 8:13 p.m., the mansion went dark. Emily heard the electrical system die. Then emergency lighting activated. Adrian reached for her. She stepped closer, voluntarily. That distinction mattered. What happened? Main power cut. Back up? Emily listened. Nothing. Disabled. Adrian pulled out his phone. No signal. Emily's expression changed. He knows. Footsteps sounded upstairs. Not frantic. Organized. Adrian opened the mechanical room door. Daniel appeared at the end of the corridor. Adrian. Vincent was behind him. We've lost the gates and cameras. Adrian looked at Emily. She understood. The mansion's sophisticated security system had become useless. But the mansion was old. Much older than its electronics. Emily remembered something she had noticed during her first month as a housekeeper. A brass service panel behind the laundry room. Original wiring. Separate circuit. She ran. Emily. Adrian followed. She reached the laundry room, shoved aside a cabinet, and opened the brass panel. Inside were thick copper wires and ceramic fuses. What are you doing? Giving your house a nervous breakdown. She pulled 2 fuses. Is that good? No idea. She crossed 2 low-voltage circuits manually. The mansion's exterior floodlights exploded to life. Not through the smart system. Through an old maintenance bypass. Outside, several figures crossing the courtyard suddenly became visible. Vincent's men moved. Adrian stared at Emily. She was already working. Can you open the gates? Maybe. Cameras? No. Locks? Some. She looked up. But if Merrick controls the digital system, stop using it. Adrian nodded immediately. No argument. No hesitation. He trusted her. That realization hit Emily unexpectedly. The man who had fired her for moving a sculpture now accepted her judgment, while his entire security system failed around him. She returned to the panel. Merrick wants something inside this house. What? The devices. Adrian understood. Evidence. The transmitters could connect Merrick to the conspiracy. They're in the security vault. Then that's where he's going. Adrian reached for his radio. Emily stopped him. If your communications are compromised, don't tell anyone. Their eyes met. What do you suggest? She smiled faintly. Move the sculpture. 10 minutes later, the original transmitter sat behind the same bronze horse where Emily had found it. The others were decoys. Merrick entered the mansion through a service entrance, using credentials that should have been disabled. He believed Adrian's security was blind. It wasn't. Emily had created something primitive. Doorbells. Old-fashioned wired contact sensors. Every time a door opened, a tiny light illuminated on the basement panel. No network. No software. Nothing Merrick could hack remotely. One light blinked. East service door. Then another. Second floor corridor. Emily looked at Adrian. He's going to the sculpture. Adrian's expression became cold. Stay here. Emily folded her arms. No. Emily, you need to know whether he takes the transmitter or destroys it. I can see that. You wouldn't know if he swaps it. Adrian stared at her. She was right. He hated that she was right. I stay behind you, beside me. This isn't a negotiation. Then go without the only person who knows what the device looks like internally. Adrian exhaled. Beside me. They moved upstairs. Merrick stood in the corridor. The bronze sculpture had been moved. In his hand was the transmitter. Thomas Merrick was 53, silver-haired, conservatively dressed, a man who looked more like a university dean than someone capable of engineering a war. He looked at Emily. You. Emily said nothing. Merrick almost laughed. Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused? Adrian stepped forward. Enough to make you come here yourself. Merrick's smile disappeared. You were supposed to destroy Rourke. You underestimated him. Merrick looked at Emily. No, I underestimated her. The sentence hung in the corridor. Adrian glanced toward Emily. Months earlier, he might have hated hearing someone say it. Now he understood it. Merrick raised the transmitter. You think this proves anything? Emily looked at it. No. He frowned. Because that's not the real one. Merrick's eyes changed. Adrian didn't move. Emily pointed toward the tiny casing. The real transmitter has a scratch across the voltage regulator housing. I put it there when I opened it. Merrick looked down instinctively. That was enough. Daniel and Vincent appeared from opposite ends of the corridor. Merrick froze. Emily had lied. She had never scratched the transmitter. But Merrick's reaction told everyone he knew exactly what should have been inside it. Adrian looked at him. You just checked. Merrick's face emptied. The conspiracy ended not with gunfire, but with silence. Vincent took the device. Daniel blocked the stairs. And Adrian Moretti stood beside the housekeeper he had once fired while the man who had manipulated his empire realized there was nowhere left to go. The evidence recovered afterward was overwhelming. Financial records. Maintenance contract. Recorded conversations. Fabricated audio files. Payments routed through North Star. Sebastian Rourke was found alive the next morning in a rented warehouse outside Providence, held there by men Merrick had hired through intermediaries. Adrian could have retaliated privately. Instead, he did something nobody expected. He gave Sebastian the evidence. All of it. The two men met in a quiet conference room overlooking Boston Harbor. Emily wasn't supposed to be there. Adrian asked her to come, not because he needed her technical expertise anymore, because he wanted her there. That difference didn't escape either of them. After Sebastian left, Emily stood by the window. You could have hidden some of those financial records. Yes. You didn't. No. Why? Adrian looked at the harbor. Because you would have known. Emily smiled faintly. So? So, apparently your opinion has become inconveniently important to me. Her smile disappeared. Adrian stepped closer. Not too close. He had learned that too. I owe you an apology. For firing me? For assuming I knew your value before knowing anything about you. Emily looked at him. And? He sighed. For trying to decide what protection should look like without asking you. That one sounded painful. It was. She smiled. Adrian reached into his jacket. Emily raised an eyebrow. If that's a check, I'm leaving. It isn't. He placed a business card on the table. Moretti Infrastructure Security, Director of Analog Systems and Physical Vulnerability Assessment. Emily stared at it. You invented a department? Yes. For me? Yes. That's ridiculous. Probably. She picked up the card. What does it pay? Adrian told her. Emily nearly dropped it. No. That's the market rate. That is not the market rate. It is my market. She laughed. Adrian watched her. He had spent years in rooms filled with people who wanted something from him. Money. Access. Fear. Approval. Emily wanted something far more difficult. Respect. And she noticed immediately when it wasn't real. The position is legitimate, he said. You'd report to an independent operations director. Not me. Emily looked surprised. You wouldn't be my boss? No. Why? Because I would like you to be able to disagree with me without worrying about your paycheck. She stared at him. That was different. He continued. You can accept it, refuse it, take the salary, and never see me socially. Leave Boston. Start your own company. I'll provide the evidence you need for professional certification and references either way. Emily lowered the card. What are you doing? Adrian met her eyes. Giving you a choice. The room became quiet. And if I choose to leave? His jaw tightened. She saw the answer before he gave it. I let you. It cost him something to say. That was why Emily believed him. She stepped closer. Adrian? Yes? You're still terrible at apologizing. I've had very little practice. I noticed. He almost smiled. Emily looked down at the card. I want the job. Something in his shoulders relaxed. But, of course there was a but. I choose my own team. Fine. I approve equipment purchases. Fine. No one calls me at 3 in the morning unless something is actually broken. Reasonable. And you don't get to send a car after me without asking. Adrian hesitated. Emily raised an eyebrow. He surrendered. Fine. She smiled. One more condition. What? Move the sculpture. Adrian stared at her. Emily laughed. 3 months later, the Moretti mansion sounded different. Emily knew because she still listened. Not as a housekeeper. As the woman responsible for rebuilding its security from the walls outward. She replaced network-dependent sensors with layered systems. She separated physical access controls from convenience automation. She trained Vincent's security team to stop assuming expensive meant invulnerable. Vincent hated the first week. By the third, he was bringing her coffee. Daniel claimed he had always liked her. Emily reminded him that he had laughed when Adrian fired her. I laughed internally. He protested. You coughed. Professional cough. Her mother received a new furnace that winter. Emily paid for it herself. Adrian offered. She refused. He didn't argue. That mattered. The relationship between them changed slowly. So slowly that Emily couldn't identify the exact moment professional dinners became something else. Perhaps it was the night Adrian arrived at her office with Chinese takeout, because he remembered she had skipped lunch. Perhaps it was when Emily discovered he anonymously funded scholarships for children of dock workers killed on the job. Perhaps it was the afternoon she caught him standing in the mansion kitchen, attempting to operate a coffee machine she had insisted remain disconnected from the central network. You run a criminal empire, she said from the doorway. Adrian looked at the machine. Allegedly. You can't make coffee. I have people. That may be the saddest thing you've ever said. She taught him. He made terrible coffee. She drank it anyway. Then came the night everything almost changed. Snow covered Beacon Hill. Emily was finishing a security report when she found Adrian alone in the second-floor corridor, standing beside the bronze horse. He looked at the wall. You know, he said, I hated this sculpture after you left. Emily leaned against the doorway. You fired me 20 feet from it. I remember. You remember everything. Not everything. He looked at her. Just things involving you. Her breath caught. Adrian stepped closer. Emily didn't move. The distance between them disappeared until only inches remained. His gaze dropped briefly toward her mouth, then returned to her eyes. He lifted one hand. Stopped. May I? Emily's heart beat harder. There it was again. Choice. She nodded. His fingers touched her cheek. Nothing more. The gentleness surprised her. So did the restraint. Adrian Moretti was accustomed to taking possession of rooms simply by entering them. With Emily, he waited. She closed the remaining distance. Their first kiss was quiet. Slow. Nothing like the dangerous world around him. When they separated, Adrian rested his forehead lightly against hers. "You know this is a terrible idea," Emily whispered. "Yes. You're complicated." "Yes. Controlling. Improving." She laughed softly. "Dangerous." His expression changed. "That part isn't going away." "I know." He waited. Emily understood what he was doing. He wasn't convincing her. He was giving her the truth and allowing her to decide what to do with it. She kissed him again. Months passed. Sebastian Rourke rebuilt his alliance with Adrian cautiously. Vincent reorganized the entire security division. Daniel never stopped teasing Adrian about the sculpture. Emily built a small team composed partly of people traditional security firms overlooked: former repair technicians, electricians, telecom workers, locksmiths, and even an aging elevator mechanic who could identify a failing relay from 2 floors away. Adrian questioned one hire. Once, Emily stared at him. He approved the paperwork. Her department eventually discovered vulnerabilities at 3 Moretti properties before anyone exploited them. More importantly, Emily created something Adrian's empire had never possessed: a culture where employees were rewarded for saying something looked wrong, even when they couldn't prove it yet. Especially then. One Friday evening, almost exactly a year after Emily had been fired, she entered the 2nd-floor corridor, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Adrian stood beside the bronze sculpture. She handed him one. He took it. Then Emily stopped. Her head tilted. Adrian noticed immediately. "What?" She didn't answer. "There." A faint hum. Emily slowly looked toward the sculpture. Adrian followed her gaze. His expression became serious. "You hear something?" "Yes." He immediately reached toward the marble pedestal, then stopped. A year earlier, he would have moved it, or ordered someone else to. Now he looked at her. "Should I move it?" Emily stared at him. Then she smiled. "Now you're learning." Together, they pushed the sculpture aside. Behind it wasn't another transmitter. One of Vincent's technicians had left a diagnostic charger connected inside a maintenance panel. Emily unplugged it. The hum vanished. Adrian looked at the harmless device. "So nobody's trying to destroy my empire?" "Not tonight." "Good." He returned the sculpture to its place. Emily started walking away. Adrian remained there. She turned. "You coming?" He looked at her. A year earlier, Adrian Moretti had believed power meant making certain nobody questioned his decisions. Emily Carter had taught him something more difficult. Sometimes power meant listening when the quietest person in the room heard something you couldn't. Sometimes protection meant standing beside someone instead of in front of them. And sometimes loving someone meant giving them enough freedom to leave, and trusting that, if what you had built together was real, they might choose to stay. Adrian walked toward her. Emily waited. Then they disappeared down the corridor together, leaving the bronze horse exactly where it belonged. For once, the mansion was completely silent, and nothing sounded wrong.